Welcome back to The Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be talking about something you all flagged as super interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Squeezing out massive success
Mm.
from tiny, almost invisible improvements.
Yeah, it really is fascinating, how much we kind of overlook the power of small changes.
Absolutely. And our source material for this deep dive is Atomic Habits by James Clear. Specifically, a case study that always gets me.
Oh, yeah.
The absolute domination of
Hmm.
British cycling after they adopted this whole
I'm
approach.
familiar.
You probably heard the story.
Yeah,
But we're gonna go deeper than usual today.
I'm ready.
All right, so picture this, okay? It's 2003. British cycling, after a whole century of competing,
Wow.
has one Olympic gold medal
Wow.
to their name.
Oof.
They're practically begging manufacturers for bikes.
Really, it's not pretty.
That's a stark contrast to what they would achieve later, though.
Yeah.
Talk about setting the stage for a comeback story, right? Right. So enter Dave Brailsford.
Okay.
He becomes performance director, and he's got this radical philosophy he calls the aggregation of marginal gains. Instead of swinging for the fences with these huge changes, he's all about relentlessly hunting down these tiny 1% improvements across everything.
I mean, the genius is in the consistency of that pursuit, right?
Right.
I mean, I think Brailsford himself said the whole principle came from the idea that if you broke down everything you could think of that goes into riding a bike and then improved it by 1%, you will get a significant increase when you put them all together.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense on paper, but let's get specific. What were some of these 1% tweaks they actually made?
Well, some were expected, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you said they were practically scrounging for bikes before this.
Right.
So redesigned seats for maximum comfort, different tires for better grip on the road, wind tunnel tested fabrics for those, aerodynamic suits.
Oh, of course.
They even figured out the indoor racing suits were lighter, so they had the outdoor riders switch to those.
Oh, that's smart. Yeah. Even if it sounds obvious in hindsight. But where did they go beyond the expected? Where did Brailsford really,
Yeah.
take it up a notch?
This is where it gets interesting.
Okay.
They brought in a surgeon to teach the riders, the most effective hand-washing techniques.
What?
Because a common cold could derail their training.
Hand washing. That's attention to detail.
Exactly. They tested different massage gels, not even for sponsorships or anything, just purely for fastest muscle recovery.
Interesting.
They optimized sleep with individual pillows and mattresses for each athlete.
Okay, so I'm starting to see a pattern here.
Yeah.
They're thinking about performance even when the riders are off the bike.
Right. And they didn't stop there. They even painted the inside of the team truck white, so they could easily spot any dust that might affect those finely tuned bikes.
Wow. That level of meticulousness is almost unbelievable. But this couldn't have been, just randomly trying things, right?
No, absolutely not. And this is key here. Brailsford was data obsessed.
Of course.
Every single change was backed by evidence. It wasn't just, oh, let's try this.
Yeah.
They had to track data points we wouldn't even think of.
Yeah. Yeah.
All feeding into this system for improvement.
Yeah.
That's what elevates this beyond mere, tweaking.
Right. It's starting to sound less like coaching and more like, I don't know, running a high-tech lab.
Right.
But did it actually work?
Oh, big time.
Okay.
We're talking about a team that went from barely getting bikes to, absolutely dominating.
All right. Let's hear about those results.
Okay.
Paint us a picture. What happened after they implemented all these tiny changes?
Fast forward to the 2008 Beijing Olympics.
Okay.
Remember, this is only 5 years after Brailsford took over.
Right.
The team wins a staggering 60% of the gold medals.
Whoa. But they didn't stop there, did they?
Not even close. 4 years later in London, they break 9 Olympic records, 7 world records. That same year, Bradley Wiggins becomes the first Brit ever to win the Tour de France.
Oh, wow.
And the next year, his teammate, Chris Froome, takes the title and then goes on to win 3 more times.
So in just a few years, they went from one Olympic gold to becoming the best in the world, breaking records left and right. That's incredible.
It truly is. And from 2007 to 2017, British cyclists won 178 world championships,
What?
66 Olympic or Paralympic gold medals, and 5 Tour de France victories. I mean, it's considered the most successful run in cycling history.
That's mind-blowing, but how do you explain such a radical transformation with what seemed like, insignificant tweaks?
That's the magic of compounding those gains,
Yeah.
applied consistently over time.
Yeah.
It's like that snowball effect.
Uh-huh.
It starts small, but as it rolls, it gathers more and more. It becomes like unstoppable.
It's so easy to dismiss the small stuff,
Yeah.
But this story really highlights the power of those seemingly insignificant changes, doesn't it? This makes me wonder.
What's fascinating here is that this principle, this isn't limited to cycling. Think about it, What areas of your life could benefit from this approach?
Now, that's a question worth pondering. We'll get to that soon. But first, what are your thoughts on this so far?
Yeah.
What stands out to you about this approach?
Well, I think what strikes me the most is how this, challenges our assumptions about success.
Yeah.
We tend to focus on those big, dramatic moments, but real change, real lasting change, it often comes from those consistent, almost like invisible efforts.
It's a refreshing perspective, Instead of waiting for some lightning bolt of inspiration,
Yeah.
we can start making progress, like right now, with the smallest, most manageable step.
Uh-huh.
But I think for a lot of people, hearing about Olympic cyclists and then thinking about their own lives,
Right.
there's a disconnect. How do we bridge that gap? How can we actually apply these ideas to something like improving our productivity at work?
That's a great question. And let's take that example. You want to be more productive,
Mm-hmm.
get more done during the day.
Okay.
The atomic habits approach would say, forget about overhauling your whole routine overnight.
Yeah.
What's the smallest change you could make that would move you in the right direction?
So instead of trying to become a time management guru
Right.
in a day, I should focus on just one small tweak.
Exactly. Maybe it's dedicating the first 15 minutes of your workday
Okay.
to just planning.
Yeah.
And prioritizing your tasks.
Right.
James Clear calls this the 2-minute rule. Can you do this new habit for just 2 minutes?
Okay.
If so, you're on the right track.
Yeah.
Make it so easy you can't say no.
Okay. So I start my day with a 15-minute planning session. What's the next step in this aggregation of tiny wins approach?
The key is consistency. You stick with it, every single day.
Okay.
The more you repeat this small action, the more automatic it becomes.
Yeah.
The less you have to rely on willpower.
Makes sense. So I'm not just making a change. I'm really embedding it into my daily routine.
Right.
What I'm hearing is that over time, this small win builds a foundation
Exactly.
for more wins.
And as that habit solidifies, you can add another small improvement. Maybe it's using a timer to work in, focused bursts. Or maybe you declutter your workspace to minimize distractions.
Yeah.
Before you know it, you've created this upward spiral of positive momentum.
I like that. An upward spiral. It feels much less daunting than trying to change everything at once.
That's precisely the point, right?
Mm-hmm.
Remember the power of compounding, like we talked about with British cycling? You can get just 1% better each day at something.
Mm-hmm.
By the end of the year, you'll be 37 times better than you were at the start.
Wow, that really puts things into perspective.
Yeah.
It makes you realize that even small efforts over time, they can make a huge difference. But let's be real, everyone has slip-ups.
Oh, yeah.
What about those times when we fall off track? How do we handle setbacks when we're trying to build these better habits?
That's a great question. And it's important to remember that setbacks are normal.
Oh, for sure.
Nobody's perfect. We all make mistakes. What matters is that you don't let those setbacks completely derail you.
So don't beat myself up if I miss a day or two.
Exactly. James Clear has this great rule.
Oh, yeah.
Never miss twice.
Mm.
If you miss a day, no worries.
Mm.
Just don't miss 2 days in a row. Get back on track as quickly as possible. Remember, it's consistency over the long term that matters most.
That's a really helpful way to frame it, It's about building resilience. Knowing that one slip up doesn't mean oh, I failed entirely.
Right.
What I'm taking away from this is it's not about being perfect. It's about getting back in the saddle and continuing to ride.
I like that analogy. And, this principle applies to breaking bad habits too, not just building good ones.
That's interesting. So how do you apply aggregation of marginal gains to getting rid of something you don't want to be doing?
Think of it this way. Instead of trying to quit cold turkey,
Yeah.
you make the bad habit just 1% harder each day. So let's say you're trying to cut back on on sugary drinks.
Mm-hmm.
You could start by just moving the soda to the back of the fridge,
Oh, interesting.
making it slightly less convenient to grab.
So you're introducing like a little bit of friction
Yes,
to make the unwanted behavior just slightly harder.
precisely.
Hmm.
And as you continue making those small adjustments, those tiny bits of friction, they add up,
Yeah.
making the bad habit less appealing and easier to break. It's like you're building momentum, but in reverse.
This is truly eye-opening. It flips the script on how we usually think about like self-improvement.
Yeah, it does.
I'm already starting to think about where else I can apply this. What do you think? What's like something our listener might be struggling with
Yeah.
where this could be useful?
Well, think about procrastination.
Right.
It's something I think most of us struggle with at some point, right? Instead of waiting for the perfect time to start a task, what if you simply committed to working on it for just 5 minutes?
That's such a great example. Like 5 minutes is so manageable, it almost feels silly to put it off.
Right.
And who knows, once you get started, you might find yourself working on it for like way longer.
Exactly. The point is to break down those mental barriers we create for ourselves.
Yeah.
Often the hardest part is simply starting. Once we overcome that initial inertia, the rest becomes much easier.
Yeah, it's like that old saying, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Mm-hmm.
Except in this case, it's more like a series of tiny, almost imperceptible steps. I think for me, what's really powerful about this whole concept is like the shift in mindset. It's not about, finding that one magic bullet or that quick fix. It's about embracing the power of like small, deliberate steps,
Mm-hmm.
taken consistently over time.
Mm.
But I'm curious, so if 1% better each day compounds so rapidly,
Yeah.
what happens if we get 1% worse each day?
Oh.
Is there a danger in those small negative actions accumulating over time?
That's a fantastic question, and one we shouldn't shy away from, right? It's like the other side of the compounding coin. Just as positive habits multiply, so can negative ones.
So those small slip-ups, like the moments of laziness or procrastination,
Yeah.
they can actually like snowball and lead us further away from our goals.
Precisely. It's a subtle but important point. Those tiny concessions we make to bad habits can accumulate, gradually eroding our progress and hindering our potential. It's a reminder that we need to be vigilant not only in building good habits, but also in guarding against the negative ones that creep in.
That's a sobering thought,
Yeah.
but also like a powerful reminder to be mindful of our choices.
Right.
Every decision we make, no matter how small, it contributes to the overall direction of our lives.
Mhm.
It's not just about, adding good things. It's also about like minimizing the bad.
Exactly. It's about recognizing that our lives are ultimately the sum total of those small daily choices, and that we have the power to shape our future, for better or worse.
That's a lot to take in. What I'm hearing is being aware of those small choices, like those moments where we could take the easy way out
Yeah.
is just as crucial as like celebrating those tiny wins.
Absolutely. It's about taking responsibility for our choices,
Yeah.
understanding that they all matter.
This has been so insightful.
Yeah.
We've gone way beyond just the British cycling story, and I'm starting to see how these principles can apply to so many areas of life.
Mm-hmm.
It feels empowering, to know that we can achieve great things, not through some like grand sweeping change,
Yeah.
but by making small, deliberate choices each day.
That's the beauty of this philosophy.
Yeah.
It's accessible, it's practical, and it reminds us that we all have the capacity for growth,
Yeah.
one tiny step at a time.
And speaking of taking a deeper dive, I can't help but mention James Clear's book, Atomic Habits. It explores all of this in even greater detail.
Absolutely.
For our listener or anyone who wants to really like delve into this, I'd say that's the place to start.
It's full of practical tips and strategies for building better habits and making those small changes that lead to lasting transformation.
This has been a fantastic conversation.
Likewise.
But before we wrap up, I have one last question.
Yep.
It's something that really stood out to me in Atomic Habits. This idea of shifting our focus from outcomes to systems. We tend to get so fixated on like that end goal, that big achievement,
Yeah.
that we forget about the systems that'll actually get us there.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's so easy to get caught up in that end goal, that shiny achievement we're always chasing.
Mm-hmm.
But like you said, real lasting change, it comes from building those solid systems,
Right.
that support us along the way.
Exactly. And Clear says it perfectly in Atomic Habits. He says, You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems.
That quote always resonates with me because it's a powerful reminder that we need to focus on the process, not just the outcome. Think about those bridge cyclists again. I mean, their success wasn't a fluke, right? They created a system. They created a culture of continuous improvement where every single detail, no matter how small, was optimized for performance. It was that system. It was that relentless pursuit of those 1% gains that propelled them to the top.
So it's about designing our environment, our habits, and
Yeah.
our routines in a way that supports our goals
Right.
rather than relying solely on willpower or motivation.
Exactly.
Because let's face it, those can be pretty fickle.
Willpower is like a muscle. It gets tired.
Yeah.
But when you have strong systems in place, you don't have to rely on willpower as much. The right actions become automatic, almost effortless.
Right.
You're essentially building a framework that guides you toward your goals, even when your motivation dips.
Yeah. That takes so much pressure off, knowing that, like, I don't have to be on all the time,
Right.
making perfect choices every day. I
Yeah.
just need the right systems in place to, like, nudge me in the right direction. But how do we go about building these systems? It sounds kind of intimidating. Like, do I need to become some sort of, like, organizational whiz?
Not at all. It could be as simple as starting with those small 1% improvements we've been talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What's one tiny change you can make today that would contribute to one of your goals?
Yeah.
And then create a plan for incorporating that change into your daily routine.
So no need for grand pronouncements or, like, unrealistic expectations.
Right.
It's more about taking those small, consistent actions day after day
Yeah,
and trusting that, they'll compound over time.
precisely. It's about embracing that incremental progress.
Mm-hmm.
Understanding that even the smallest steps, when taken consistently, can lead to extraordinary results.
Yeah, it's a message of hope and empowerment, isn't it?
It is.
It reminds us that we all have the capacity for greatness, even if it starts with something as simple as,
Right.
making our bed every morning or taking a 5-minute walk each day.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that those small choices, those seemingly insignificant actions, can have a profound impact on our lives. It's about realizing that we have more control than we often think.
This whole conversation has been incredibly inspiring. It's given me, like, a renewed sense of optimism and a practical framework for, like, creating positive change in my own life. And for our listeners, who are eager to learn more, I highly recommend checking out James Clear's Atomic Habits.
I second that. It's a game changer.
Yeah.
It really is. Packed with insights and strategies that can help you build those positive habits and create lasting change.
Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, or maybe even just a tiny 1% nudge in the right direction.
Well said. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep striving to become the best version of yourself, one small improvement at a time.